Good evening. This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program from the desk of the editor. I always like to remind you that the Voice and Viewpoint is San Diego's oldest and only African American publication, available in 89 zip codes, 17 cities, 39 communities, the unincorporated areas of the county, single copy newsstands, retail outlets. You can also get it free on the internet. And we are excited about the fact that we make our paper available to our churches and libraries and senior centers in the community. So this evening we are coming to you in a post-election program with much discussion. Um, we have with us here from the paper Ms. Latanya West, managing editor of the Voice and Viewpoint, and she's joining Dr. Leonard Thompson III and myself as we do this discussion this evening. So I'm going to yield first to Ms. West and then to you, Dr. Thompson. We're putting ladies first, and then we're going to have an open mic. If you have views, you may call us at 858-251-6111, or you may join us on the internet at godradio1.com. Either way, we welcome your comments, your questions, sharing, and the opportunity to share your views with our listeners. Ms. West.
Yes, Dr. Warren.
I'm not going to put you on the spot yet. We're going to come back because you got all kinds of views about the national thing. Dr. Thompson, we're going to start off with some of our state stuff first. Then we're going to come back because Ms. West has really got, as you have, and most people have views about what's happened nationally. And I just wanted to get some local stuff in first, since I know we're going to really burn up the discussion with the national scenario.
Well, Dr. Warren, good evening to everybody. The day after the election, I will say I stand here very hopeful and very encouraged, because in the midst of adversity, in the midst of the storm, I still serve a risen Savior. And I don't believe that God will be mocked in all that has taken place. Some people are very happy with the election results. Some people are cautious. Some people are sad. Some people are distressed. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, life still will go on. We will have to work hard. It will challenge us to be more vigilant, and it will challenge us to be our voices to be heard. And I would say to Ms. West and to Dr. Warren, and I think it's going to challenge some real conversations among men, among women, among the African American population. And for me, Dr. Warren, before we get even to the local race, I want to really talk about how we as African Americans move forward, because in a roundabout way, it was said that our vote don't matter no more.
Well, this has been said for quite some time, and much of that we are the blame for, because we have become apathetic in too many instances. We don't vote, we don't want to vote, or we think it's not important. And most of those today who have the views that I just expressed, they weren't alive when we were fighting and dying to get the right to vote. And so that's part of it. We have a generation that's been spoiled. You know, the Bible always uses this expression when it talks about the people that came after Joseph in the Hebrews being in Egypt. And it said, there arose a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph. And so we have a generation that know not the struggle or what we went through, and they've taken it for granted, and they're basically indifferent, like the world started when they got here. And so sometimes conflict and difficulty can be an important teacher. And I won't be as hard as Ben Franklin was in Poor Richard's Almanac, when he made the statement that experience teaches a dear school, but a fool will learn in no other. And I think there are going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to realize they've been fooled as we move ahead with this national election, and understand that the implications of what happened yesterday will hit us for the next 50 to 75 years in a very big way. I guess we already gonna be into that discussion anyhow, Dr. Thompson.
Yeah.
We were trying to, yeah, but we gotta be into it.
Well, I think that we're going to hit everything tonight, but one of the things I think that is very, very important to note is simply this, is that it appears that he will have everything in his favor, from the legislative to the judicial, to everything will be in his favor. So Project 2025, I really believe is going to be in full effect. And I want to see how many evangelicals, and I'm really curious of how many of them bought the Trump Bible and are reading from the Trump Bible. I guess he's now the New King James Version.
Well, I'm gonna reserve a comment on that until after Miss West, because I know she's burning to share some reaction, and then I'm gonna drop a bomb on you about what you just said.
Oh, there's so much, so much to say and nothing to say almost, it's, here we are, that's the thing, here we are. I chose to be optimistic. That was the path I took once Kamala was named, and even with Joe Biden, because I just was like, Trump cannot win. But the country obviously felt differently, the majority of Americans who voted anyway. And that's the reality that we live in now. This is it. It's been here, but it's been revealed. So what do we do now? That's kind of where I'm at in my headspace. I've been talking to my girlfriends, lots of tears, lots of disbelief. But I have family members who are probably very happy. I haven't spoken with them. And this is an opportunity for a lot of forgiveness on my part. And why ask why? Why ask how? It's just, this is the reality, so what do we do now? And I've made the choice and the decision to just remain vigilant, because that's what we have to do. It's not like we haven't been here before, because we have. And we can look back in history and see, what did we do then? At least now, I was speaking to Dr. Warren earlier today, and I was saying, well, at least it's not the 1800s, where we're in a northern state and we're free blacks and can all of a sudden, get snatched up and brought back into slavery. So it's not as bad as that. But we made it through that. And we made it through the Civil War. We made it through Reconstruction. We made it through Jim Crow. So here we are again, dealing with the same thing with a different, the version 100 whatever, and we just have to be vigilant. I would love to just go hide under the covers and just not come out for another 4 years and not look at the news, whatever, but we can't afford that. So it's just about being aware, and also too being in media, understanding too, even just as a country, that it's different than the past because we're so fragmented. And there's so many different sources of information, and thus the opportunity for disinformation. So people are very confused, and I think that's part of it as well, and not critically thinking about where they're getting their information from. And it's sad, it's a tragedy, but this is where we are. So, keep fighting the good fight is and not just as Black people, but as Americans, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things is some brief statistics that we received. It said when it came down to gender, males voted 44% for Kamala and 54% for Donald Trump, and females flipped it and did 54% for Kamala Harris and 44% for Donald Trump. Again, I still think that is an indictment on women in general, that number is not higher. Because again, they're still saying that there's a fear of a woman if she can truly lead. And that number right there, that says that to me. Then when it breaks it down into race, you know what I'm saying? It says white people, 43% was for Kamala. For African Americans, 86% were for Kamala. for Hispanics, 53%, Asian, 56%, and then there became this other that went 53% for Donald Trump. And between, for lack of better words, the whites and the others, they were enough to pull him over. And then we looked at it and we see that 55% of 18 to 29 went for Kamala, 51% from 30 to 44. But here's the big switch. The 45 to 64, they went for Trump, 53%. And there are a big, wide margin of those that vote. And then even 65 and over, it was like a dead heat. So, but then you saw the thing about the college educated versus the non-college educated, and that was a big number. The non-college educated people went for Trump. So some people say that was representing the working class or whatever. But with these numbers and percentages being what they are, it's just very disappointing that what we're seeing is a nation that is fragmented. You know, I would guarantee, Dr. Warren, that when they go to do the statistics on how many guns were bought the next day, and the rest of this week, people are arming themselves for for division. And I think that we have to be mindful that we have to shift that.
And can I just say before you begin, Dr. Warren, that a thought came to my mind today that making lemonade out of lemons, so to speak, can you imagine if she had one? We'd be in total chaos right now. So there is that. I don't know. I can't even, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, honestly. I'm still processing what happened and how it went down. But here we are. This is the country we live in, and these are the people that we live amongst who have these values that are so diametrically opposed to what I thought my country was about and what I understood as I grew up to be what America was about.
Dr. Warren.
Well, let me just share some things with you. First of all, there are too many people in this country have never read the Constitution. They don't understand the value of the Constitution. I have said repeatedly that when people are coming here and studying for the citizenship tests, many of the immigrants, one of the first things they do off television is buy a citizenship kit. And they are reading the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the amendments to the Constitution. So by the time these people hold their hand up, they know all of these things. We have citizens who can't tell you anything about it. They've heard of the 14th Amendment, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. They've heard people talk about due process. They've heard of freedom of speech. So they've heard sound bites in terms of it. And I think the statements today by Vice President Harris and Liz Cheney, which pointed out that the Constitution is so valuable that we must follow the Constitution and not the persons. So now,
Or the party.
I want to make an observation here because people are giving too much credit to Trump. Trump is just a symbolic vehicle to achieve a goal that white Americans, especially rural and non-college educated and males, these are people who make emotional biased decisions. They're not logical, they're not reasonable, they go by what they see. Rural America with the gun rack in the back of the truck, they don't go to the city. They go to the town once in a while if they need to. As far as they're concerned, they're buying the threat. They're buying the threat that the Second Amendment is going to be abolished and somebody's going to come to take your guns. And so they buy these sound bites and they buy into the lies that go along with this. Here is the key. There was a major commercial I heard that said, in effect, that when you vote, you want to vote for the party that's going to give you 2 more Supreme Court justices, a host of federal judges, and they're going to guarantee the kind of security that we want in America for the next 50 to 75 years. So Trump is the instrument for implementing those things. I think much of the rhetoric that we heard from J.D. Vance was all about keeping the base stirred up. That's why the hatred. Keep the base in negative mob control mentality. And then you saw what Trump did today. He's been screening when world leaders call him, how long it takes them to call, who calls, who supported him before, talked to him when he was out of office. And so we're looking at that. People are having reactions about Elon Musk and what he's going to do, and RFK Jr. is, so far he's got control of the court, which is Article 3 of the Constitution. He's got control of Article 1, which is the executive branch, and he's got 50% control of Article 2, which is the Senate. And so there were 34 members of the Senate up for election. It looks like it's going to be 53 to 49, with J.D. Vance taking Kamala's place because the vice president becomes president pro tem of the Senate. So he will, but they won't even get to a tie vote. And in terms of the House, right now they're at 190 members of the House. They have to reach 218 in order to determine who's going to be in control. And the Republicans already have 209. The Democrats are responsible for the losses that they suffered. I have no sympathy for them. For the past 20 years, I have argued with the Democratic Party about the carelessness of how they put the same old people every time they get a chance to be in control. They recycle the same folks. They don't reach out. They don't try to do anything different. Last night at our watch party, I pointed out, even before it came on, what's happening with the Hispanic males. First of all, Latino males have a fundamental macho mentality. That's first and foremost. They think that women should listen to them and that they should be in control and in charge. The second thing about it is the Latinos who have come to this country from Cuba and other places, many of them were business people or have been successful. They don't want people coming in here from the places that they fled, trying to convert America to what they left. And so, yes, there's going to be an effort to do some deportation, and we're worried about families. I'm not worried about whether or not the families are broken up. And this is going to really sound hard, okay, because the people who came here illegally made a choice to come here. And when a black person breaks the law, nobody asks them, what's the impact of your breaking the law on your family? Are they going to be all right if you go to jail? Can we get anything for them? Can we get them assistance? No, nobody asked those questions. So people have made a choice to come here the way they shouldn't have come. And the final thing is that America has moved from the America of the Martin Luther King era, when we had compassion and we were a praying nation, to now we are a nation without a moral compass. We don't really believe in God. We're in many gods all over the place. And so we're following a historical pattern that shows that nations that have operated this way have collapsed from within. And we're on that track in terms of where we're going. It's not going to be easy for Trump to implement all of the stuff that he wants to. Already Jack Smith is winding down his cases. We just need to watch and wait and see what happens as he promised on the first day. Is he going to issue the 1,500 pardons and let everybody out of prison? Is he going to pardon himself? Okay, we're going to see if he does that. He can't be impeached because he controls the Senate, so that won't happen. And so there is no chance that the cabinet is going to institute Article 28, 26, I think it is, where they have to have so many signed to declare him unfit to hold office, and they were close to doing that in his last administration, and they didn't. I don't think we can afford to get hung up on watching Trump as much as we need to watch ourselves in terms of what we're going to do. We need to look at our spending patterns. We need to look at our lifestyle. We need to look at how we're interacting with each other. We need to look at, are we paying attention now to government? Are we looking at the people that we just put in office in terms of what they're going to do? In the state of California, there was a pattern that took place. We had our down ballot here from the Voice and Viewpoint. Everyone that we endorsed won office, from Todd Gloria coming back as mayor to Whitburn coming back, Sean E. Oliveira coming back to the city council. Ward went back to the assembly. We saw Carl DeMaio slip in. We saw Lachey Collins take 79th Assembly District seat. We saw Brian Mainshine go down the tubes in his battle against Heather Ferbert for city attorney, and it was an appropriate defeat. We saw 3 members of the Board of Supervisors go back. Noah Vargas as chair, Tara Lawson-Rima as vice chair. They were reelected. Tara beat back in District 3. Kevin Faulkner, we didn't want to see him there. The one Republican we supported was Joel Anderson from East County. He came back. And so those are signs. We look at who do we have in office. We got Adam Schiff, who beat Steve Garvey out. And so he's going to be the senator in both of those seat races. That's important. Akilah Weber went on to the Senate after leaving the Assembly. And so we saw in Lemon Grove that Raquel Vasquez has lost for her 3rd bid as mayor, with Allison Snow being the one that came forward. And Allison is not a surprise because not only is she Mormon, but she's a historian and she's well respected in the community. And so these are things we have to look at around us. School board put 2 people back in unopposed. No one running against Sharon Whitehurst Payne or Richard Barrera. And Richard Barrera has been an enemy to our community in terms of deciding that we no longer need to be concerned about blacks, as he told us at Black Men and Women United, that everybody now needs to be concerned about Hispanics and the rest of us can get to the back of the line. And so we are responsible for what we have in office because we don't vote, many of us, we don't read, many of us. We have convinced ourselves we're not important until we run a crisis. Now when we need housing, when we need health care, when we need something, now we want to run like the world owes us help. And the world doesn't owe you anything. If you haven't done nothing for nobody else, then nobody is obligated to do for you, even though you have adopted a welfare entitlement mentality, which has been programmed in terms of the way we've been treated. So I'm not going to be crying over Trump. He's there. We'll see what he does. But let's focus on what we can do. That's the key. What do we do with what we have? And what do we do with how we spend? We're still spending too much money at Popeyes and KFCs and McDonald's. We're still spending too much money on potato chips, butter, toilet paper, and liquor. We're still spending the money in, as George Stevens used to say, in southeastern San Diego. We spend over $4 to $5 million a year that just goes out of the community because we don't care where the money goes. So we need to come together, have more discussion, look at who we are and where we are, and we can keep an eye on what's happening nationally. But let's focus on the state and what needs to take place. And I know I said a lot there, but I just want to put an end to crying over what happened. He's there. Now let's see what takes place. That's what we need to do.
Well, I think definitely local is the key. Local. And regional, state, state, regional, local. That's where you can get the most influence, especially right now. I mean, next 4 years.
Well, and I think that the biggest thing is that we are going to truly have to educate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that we can't just sit back and say it happened and that's just the end of the story. There is a plan effect, and this plan is not just a 4-year plan. This plan is a plan that's supposed to be lasting for years and years to come.
Mm-hmm.
He has right now the Supreme Court. Now he can affect it for the next 70 years with the next 2 appointments that he makes. And at that point, they come up and say, if you too dark skinned, you can't come to a certain part of the thing, and they could take it all to the Supreme Court. And they were like, oh, I do agree, or whatever, because again, there's no checks and balances anymore. And that is the thing that we're going to have to be very mindful of. In the next 2 years, we're going to have to make moves to bring back the checks and balances, because right now it's a free for all.
Right.
It's a free for all.
Yeah.
And so But at the same thing, I will just say this, that I'm just rest assured. Everybody say, why you smiling, why you happy? Because I serve a God. And I know that God will not be mocked. I know that we're going to have to deal with our disobedience, that I believe we're here to this day for our disobedience, and there's some evangelicals out there that say, well, we always knew. And the thing about it is simply this, those same evangelicals remind me of when they had to choose between Jesus and Barabbas, and they took the crook and the killer versus the Lord and Savior.
And we are so glad that they took Barabbas,
Yeah.
or we'd be in trouble today, right? And so, yeah, those are the examples, and we can't be focusing on the evangelical argument is what the secular world makes, because they don't even understand the concept of believers in Christianity. They don't really get it. That's like in the days of Jimmy Carter when they were having a discussion about the Pew Charitable Trust was doing a study about the difference between born again Christians and Christians. Well, you can't be a Christian without being a born again Christian. So how you gonna have two categories of the same thing? You see, and so we're not paying the attention. Yes, people are crying. The young are crying. They don't understand. Kamala was gracious in handling the concession, and if you're gonna run for office, you got to be prepared to lose, okay? But my heart was going out to her last night because I remember how I felt the first time I poured my heart and soul into a campaign and I lost. And it's devastating when you first experience it. But if you learn that if you can't handle a loss, it's like getting in a fight. You have no business in it if you think you're not going to be hit. So you have to be able to buckle up and take it and move forward. And I think we get smart. You see, we have been predictable. The masses have been predictable in this country. That's why a Heritage Foundation could make a plan. That's why we have an electoral college that was the back door to controlling who's president when the masses thought for almost 200 years that we were making a decision based on our popular vote ballot. And let us be sure that we understand. I didn't want to say anything in our watch party, but in the first 10 minutes of the votes that were released, I knew that Trump had already won, just in the first 10 minutes. Because I can tell you in terms of handling an election is a strange statistical thing that takes place. The ones that lead and others gain, but the leads expand. And when you see the leads coming the way his came,
So fast.
and you look at the country, what you see there is the country shut down a long time ago about what Trump was saying. It was just focused on somebody put the word out there, we need to get him in so we can move to phase 2. That was the message. And Biden, I blame him for taking so long on the one hand to step down, but at the same time, if he had stepped down at the beginning of the year, Kamala would have never made it because they would have been putting some white male in there. So I think she did a phenomenal
Totally,
job,
very
okay?
much so.
Phenomenal
She
job.
stepped up.
107 days, $1 billion, and touched every part of the country. It's just that she hit the wrong message, all right? And because the Democratic Party is still trying to carry the gays and the abortionists and every element that there is mixed in together, when people aren't like that, people become conservative when they have something to conserve.
I think one of the things which we did not see is we did not see any statistics on the gay vote. You know what I'm saying? We've seen a lot of other statistics, but we haven't seen any statistics on that. And I'm really curious about that. I'm really curious about those. Are they considered the other? What?
Right. Well, I think that it goes beyond just, I don't think she had the wrong message. I think that people didn't know who she was. She was only in for 3 months, for crying out loud? But also she's a woman and she's a woman of color. I mean, there's that. There's that.
Well, the flaw in the whole campaign strategy is they let the opposition repeatedly make reference to what she had not done. And I didn't hear her campaign coming back saying, understand she was vice president, not president. Understand that as vice president, she was president of the Senate, and that 33 times she was a tie-breaking vote that gave us Build Back Better and the other major legislative accomplishments. I didn't hear them stressing that. I heard them stressing the crime and the DA and the whole bit. For black males, they're not going to embrace somebody who's going to remind them of being a prosecutor, because too many of us have been prosecuted in terms of it.
But they wouldn't have held that against a man.
But the point is they held it against her because of her track record. When Kamala was Attorney General here, there were a number of key decisions that she did not make from a African American standpoint that really irritated people. Number one. Number two, I think a number of black males didn't vote for her because her husband is white and Jewish.
Let's not even go there.
Oh no, we got to go
About
there
that.
because they went there in terms of making their decisions on how they were going to vote.
Yeah, but how? It's like,
Understand that when people vote emotions, they don't have to have logic. All they have to do is go by what they feel. And you cannot, we've seen that with our own family members. You can't argue with them about what they feel because they're going
I
to
can
try
be
to
mad at it, though.
they're going to try to defend it.
yeah.
Okay? And so that's what we're up against. And I can tell you many times in the years that I've run campaigns and knocked on doors and people told me how they felt opposite to what I was trying to do, all I could do was say to them, have a nice day and get away as quickly as I could, because the next thing they would do is hold you there and consume your time with their arguments to keep you from going to the next neighbor. And so, but she went in all kinds of places and she did a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we didn't vote like we should have. When I say we, I mean that whole collective element that's going to be victimized. I don't feel sorry for any Arab American that ends up being deported. When they sat right there in Michigan, and because they didn't like the message on Gaza from Harris, they're going to decide not to vote. Well, that's stupid, because you're going to be on the first plane when they say window or aisle, chicken or beef, and fly you out of here to wherever you came from. Okay? So this is real.
Yeah, and I think that even some of the words that Donald Trump used, and he was like, flatten it, blow it up, do whatever it has to do.
And a lot of people
Yeah.
feel that way because I think that he just tapped into, I may have said this before, but there was something about this man, Donald Trump, and his messaging that just tapped into that piece of those people who decided that he was the man for them. They just chose to let that piece of them that wasn't loving, that wasn't had any kind of human value for people and what we supposedly stand for in this country. They just decided to just let that piece of themselves fly free. He gave them permission. He opened the Pandora's box. And that's the scary part. This is the first time as an adult that I've felt some fear, honestly. Just being a little bit afraid for myself as a black person, as a black female, as a person who is a part of a marginalized group, underrepresented group. I've never felt that way before. This is like a totally different, and because it's clear to me that this is not going to end just with him, because he opened that door, and how the heck are we going to close it now?
Oh, I don't think that we're going to be able to close it.
No.
But I think that there's going to be some definitive issues. And the thing about it is that I think that people are expecting a race war, but I believe that there will be an implosion because there are so many people that look just like them that are the enemy. It wasn't us that tried to attempt the stage assassination.
Y'all keep going on there.
It wasn't us. It wasn't us that did the other stage assassination. It was always people that look just like them.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Is because at some point people get tired. And again, here's the problem that Donald Trump has. Some people, because you see it on school campuses, where the bully always has a crowd of people, and he got all these friends, but the one day he's gonna bully the wrong person, and that person is gonna catch him, and that's gonna be the end of the story. And that's what I see with Donald Trump. is that he is a big bully.
Yes.
J.D. Vance is a little little gnat that's cheering it on and everything else that nature. He couldn't fight if he was with a wet paper bag, but he's up there being big and bad and everything else that nature. Day of reckoning is going to come, and it ain't gonna come at the hands of black people.
Oh, no.
It's gonna come at the hands of the people that they bully. You know what I'm saying? Trust me, Elon Musk and Donald Trump will not be able to coexist in the same administration because Elon Musk said, "Look, I'm the richest man in the world. I could do and say what I want to do." Donald Trump said, "Well, I'm the president of the United States." Guess who's gonna trump who? So
I
it's gonna
hope
be
you're
a battle.
right. I don't even know what to say because I'm so speechless by the whole thing, to be honest.
Unless
It's
he
just
got
that,
there and he said, "Donnie, now that we got power and everything else that nature, I could be emperor and you could be king, Donnie. Let's do it together. Two weirdos looking the same. Let's try to take over the country because we weren't popular when we were kids. Everybody made fun of us. So that's why I comb my hair this way, and that's why I pull people like Herschel Walker and said, Donald J. Trump Jr. Isn't that your son, and not you? Come on."
I don't know. All I know is that we just have to deal with what is right now and
We
be
gotta make America great
real
again.
diligent, really diligent about what's happening, and not close our eyes, not just allow ourselves to be distracted, because I can't help but think about. I even hesitate to say it, but Germany, back in the 30s, and how that progression happened. This is a world power, that slowly descended, and it just happened over time, and it was allowed to happen by that country of people. And I just see the same thing happening here, and it's been happening for a while.
Well, honestly, the biggest thing is that eventually people will wake up. Not all will wake up, but again, they will wake up when the heat comes to their door, when the promises that were promised won't happen. The people who were told that they will no longer have to pay taxes on their tips. Hey, I'm hoping that goes through. Why? Because I'm going to pay everybody in tips. Say, now you have a salary that's tax-free. Let me tip you here and let me tip you there. Let's just call it the way it is. A lot of promises. They've been eating the dogs and the cats. I want to know if that's what's going to be on the menu for him since he done talked about it so much. You know what I'm saying? So my biggest thing at the end of the day is simply this. We have to be smart. We have to be
Yes,
vigilant.
that's
And
what I
we
keep
cannot
saying.
take our toys and go home. Now more
No.
than ever before, we got to get in the game, and we have to understand that if we know the game and we know that it's crooked, we know that what it is, but we got to shift it up. The Democratic Party can no longer take black votes for granted, and that they're going to be the people of the minority population. Ain't gonna happen no more. We're going truly to a three-party system. Independents are going to outweigh most of them, and now they're saying, "Earn my vote." But the Republicans, they just puppets. As long as it's Republican, they're gonna vote for it. You know what I'm saying? They work for Democratic people, but they're gonna vote Republican no matter what, because it's a party. So I just consider, many times it's like a little game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. It don't matter if we right or right. We just gonna vote.
Well, we have to. We have to be part of the process, but not everybody believes that. That's part of why he won. There are people. I want to know how many people voted in this election. Is that number out yet?
Oh yeah, it's a low turnout. Even in California, it was a low turnout. In California, let me see if I can pull this up right quick. Or in San Diego County, it was less than 50%.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 50% of the people voted here, and yet the register of voters had predicted that she was going to see a 80% voter turnout. What we don't know yet is how many absentee ballots that there are that are still to be counted.
Yeah.
And so those could put the number up. But in most states, they know the number of absentees that they have, even though they haven't counted them yet.
Yeah.
So-
And in San Diego County, 49.2% voted. So we have over 50% that did not vote.
They just didn't
Registered
care.
voters.
They just
Or
didn't
they
care.
didn't think it would make a difference.
Yeah.
They didn't think it would make a
Well,
difference.
I always like to when we do that, because look at what happened with the propositions, okay? Proposition 33, which would have had some impact in terms of housing and rent control. It was defeated in 2015, it was defeated in 2018, and it was defeated again yesterday by large numbers. And in San Diego County, I keep saying this, 49% of the residents of San Diego County are renters. And now we see 51% of the people didn't bother to vote. And so that element that seeks to control, we refer to them as the Republican Party, but really there's a conservative movement that is not concerned about the masses, you see. And I can tell you from experience, and every political scientist can tell you the same thing, that when you try to do what she did and you put all your eggs in the basket to help the masses, 9 times out of 10 you're going to lose because they will not vote. They will scream, they will holler, they will come out, they'll say right on, keep going, but then they won't vote. And that makes the difference because we have lost understanding of the value of the vote. We don't look at what happened with Fannie Lou Hamer and what she did in Mississippi. And it was painful to me to see Mississippi just go for Trump almost automatically. It's like when Estes ran for the Senate years ago down there, and he was beat out by this racist white woman in Mississippi. And yet he had served as Secretary of Agriculture and done all kinds of things in the House. And so we have to get involved. And we can't wait until we're running for office to get involved. That's the biggest concern that I have. The mentality in the West, and LaTanya, we were discussing this the other day. The mentality in the West, remember so many people who came West, they came to get away from the structure and tradition of the East. And so they don't want to get to know their neighbor. They don't care about all of this unless you can give them how they're going to be affected. And what Trump did, he showed them how they were affected. He kept saying, you're spending more than you did a year ago. Gas is costing you more than a year ago. Inflation, and the inflation we had, he created. It just took that time for it to catch up. Okay, so that's what they're looking at. They're listening to what he's saying.
And he signed their checks. Remember that?
Yeah, his name was on the checks that went out during the pandemic. Even though the checks were going out after he was out of office, his name was on the checks. And so those are things that we can learn from. People ultimately, in a selfish mode, they want to know what's in it for me. And Trump is saying what's in it for you is we're going to get rid of all these people that shouldn't be here. That's what's in it for you. And if you white, you're going to be excited because that means there's going to be fewer of them people coming. Okay, because all of them are crooks. They eat your dogs and cats. They're going to rape your women. And they just going to break into your house and they're going to do you. Vote for me and I'll protect you.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, could you explain to people about tariffs and what does tariffs really mean? Because everybody said, he's going to tariff. Tell them what it really means.
Well, here's the tricky part. A tariff is in effect a tax that's put on a product that's coming into the country from another place. And the higher the tax that's put on it, the more it's supposed to reduce the actual numbers coming, and it's supposed to have economic impact on the selling party shipping into the country. The reality, though, is that if the tariff goes up on the company that's shipping it, then the country shipping the tariff will raise their price, and so the people who are buying will have to pay more because of the tariff, and they're going to pass their increase on to the consumer, which is us, the customer. So ultimately, the tariffs that he's talking about, you want to put a tariff on China. Well, I don't think most people have an idea just how much stuff comes from China.
Yep.
Okay?
Oh, I think people know.
And when they start looking at what comes from China, and we saw this in the pandemic when we had the port shut down and all of the stuff backed up that wasn't coming in. Okay? And then it cost more to ship. Now, what Amazon did was Bezos, he had his own planes. And so he just flew his planes over there and picked the stuff up because he's got a fleet of planes. But for Walmart and everybody else, they were waiting. Those ships were backed up out there at San Pedro and the harbors in Baltimore and Oakland trying to get into the country to do it. So those prices get passed on to the consumer. And that's the point. So Trump makes it sound like, well, we're going to punish China. No, you're going to punish us because look at what happened with the fast food. This is a perfect example. It's not a tariff. We raised the fast food a starting price to $20 an hour for somebody
The
flipping
minimum
burgers
wage.
at McDonald's. Do you think the owner is paying the $20? No, the owner passed it out. So what happened? The last time I went to McDonald's and bought 2 fish sandwiches, they cost me $15.
Yeah.
Okay, when they used to be $2 a piece. So now I'm gonna blame Biden that the price went up on the fish sandwiches, cause in the rest of the country, the minimum wage is $7.50, $8 to $10. Okay, and so we're different in terms of here, but we're not paying attention. They're talking about gas getting to be $3 a gallon in the rest of the country.
You're like, wow, that'd be
Oh,
great
if we
here.
thought $3 a gallon, we'd be happy out here.
Yep.
You know, it
Yeah.
costs.
And so that's the biggest thing. It's just like reading between the lines, being very astute. All the sound bites go off now, you know, and we got to say what's real.
And pay attention. Just pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah.
And who's doing what, you know, what's being said, really digging in. I mean, I feel like we don't have any other choice or
Well, I'm really curious. Here's a couple of things I'm really curious of. One, when Donald Trump gets back in office, will he remove the picture of Michelle Obama and Barack Obama?
yes, I'm sure
One.
he will.
Two, will he then take down or refuse to put up Biden's picture? You know?
Probably.
Probably not. I
You
don't
know.
know. I think he's a white
Yeah,
male.
but
So
what does it matter to us whether he take them down or put them up? We can't focus on that. We got to be focusing on the rest of what's happening, because we have to know which things we can impact to change and which we can't.
Oh no, this
Yeah.
He's just being-
this is really this like a snapshot of who the person consistently bees or is, and you know, everybody says, oh well, he's this, he didn't mean this, he did it. But my whole thing is, if it quacks like a duck and it waddles like a duck, then it must be a duck. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to see if he's going to continue on his efforts to be that duck. And for all, and I have to say this, I'm so disappointed with our black men that supported him. You know, I think that every woman that is married to any of them should clink, clink, lock it down, and just be able to say, go see Betty.
But see, my question though is what was it? It's like that's a big mystery for so many of his supporters. What was it that made you go for this man?
Oh, I can tell
It's
you what
just-
it was.
What you think,
It
Dr.
was
Warren?
several things that made him go for it.
The black
First,
men I'm
the
talking
black
about
men.
right now.
First of
in
all,
particular.
a lot of people looked at Trump from the standpoint he's a billionaire, he's successful, he's beat the system. They tried to lock him up. That's why he put his mugshot on T-shirts. And we laughed when he said it, but he said, I know all the black men that's been locked up, they can identify with this. Yeah. Because you look at here, they got my picture, they got me too, but I'm beating the system. And so that's what they're looking at. They're looking at the system. They're not trying to look beyond him, because they don't care about the prosecutor that put them in jail. They care about the one that looks like he's beating the system.
So it's that simple. It's
and
that
it's
simple.
that
I
simple.
keep hoping it's something else
And
beyond
no,
just
it's real simple. He's
this whole his
He-
image, the con artist that he is. You know, the fakery. You know, because
he represents the ultimate rebellion against the system.
Yes.
He says what he wants. He
Right,
doesn't care.
right.
He talks about grabbing women. He's done the rape and all the other stuff. And there's some people that they marvel at that kind of behavior.
But that's what
Okay.
I think that is why my girlfriends are crying, because we realize, oh my gosh, is this who we are?
Yeah,
Is
but
this
they got to get over it.
No,
Yeah.
no. You have to have room for grief. I mean, that's
Okay,
okay.
well,
you
how
just
long
have
you
to
gonna
get back
grieve?
up. It's only been a day. It
That's
hasn't been
not
that long.
enough.
I gave myself a day. I said, okay, one day I will allow myself to
Okay.
grieve, and then tomorrow, back on the horse.
Okay, So you got one day to cry.
That's right.
What y'all doing tomorrow? Because I want to know y'all strategy, because y'all got more power than you could ever imagine. What the women going to do about it? Tomorrow is coming. The tears are dried up. You know what they say in part of grief, first you get sad, then you
Then
get angry, then
You get mad as hell.
Yeah. So my whole thing is, will we have what is it?
All the
Angela
sta-
Bassett moment where she take all the clothes and put it in the car and light it on fire and walk away with the bam, bam, bam?
Well, I keep saying, like I said from the beginning, it's that we just have to pay attention. We have to know what we're looking at and then make our plan. I think we're all still, processing it and trying to figure it out. But for sure, we're not going to give up and not going to fight for another day because we have no other choice.
So can we put out a new picture that says the felon in the hole and put him and his wife together and put them on a t-shirt?
The what?
The felon in the hole.
Oh, the felon?
Yeah,
Felon?
yeah, like felony, felon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
In the hole.
yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard about that. Sorry.
We're talking about his wife.
Oh.
You know.
Oh, in the hoe.
Yeah,
Did you say the
that's-
hoe?
yeah.
Oh, they just, oh.
I mean, because he said make money anyway, and we know her past,
Okay.
and then for all the
But
evangelicals.
see, we're not going to go there, though.
you
No,
know.
because there's grace. We got to have some character.
I'm trying, but
we can't go there. No.
The evangelicals was like, he cheated on his first wife to get to the second wife. He cheated on his second wife to get to the third wife, but he's the evangelical's choice.
Well, don't even get me started on that. But we got to get beyond that because that's him. That's
So-
his energy. No.
But I want to
we're
know
not-
what the women gonna do, because I mean,
They're
basically,
not going.
this is
They're not
second
going.
time.
They're not going to do anything, Brother Thompson, because you see, in the '60s, in the height of the
Are you talking about black women?
I'm talking about women in general.
women period, but in the '60s, the women were attuned to what you're saying, okay, because they were partners in terms of the struggle, and they were by any means necessary helping to influence what took place. The tragedy of the generation we have today is they all messed up worse than the men in many respects. Some of them can out-curse the men in terms of what they don't maintain the integrity of the identity that they have as women because they haven't been trained, they haven't been taught. They raised themselves, okay? Their parents, their mamas were trying to be their friends rather than their mothers. And so and then we want to blame the household if we say the man wasn't there. In many instances, they weren't. But we also have too many people who were successful in spite of the father not being present. And so we can't get into the Moynihan thing, the matriarchal, and go through all of that social stuff. We need to focus on where we are, bring it back home real. If we circle the wagons, redo the family thing, the men and the women communicate, we got to get on one accord if we're going to survive. The village can't survive as a collection of strangers. And the message has to go out that that's what we become, a collection of strangers. And we cannot let one man further disrupt or destroy us. If anything, his behavior should be a unifying factor in terms of, as we've done. Our history has always been that we overcame whatever was put before us. Our achievements and our greatness came in spite of racism, in spite of slavery, in spite of. We didn't do any of that because of, and we didn't got so spoiled that now because of wants to become the excuse, and it can't be.
Well, that's what I've been saying from the beginning, that we have to go back to, okay, what have we done before? What happened? We got through it before, so we can get through it again. I don't have the answers. I'm still figuring it out, but all I know is that we can't stop. No way can we let them win. So I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't know.
I think the women
But-
should go on strike and say, until you do right by me, I'm.
Well, let me put another
Yeah,
dimension
but-
to this conversation, okay? Because I like to look at the Latino community as a perfect example. They're hardworking people, in spite of how they're projected, they got a focus and a purpose. If you got mama, papa, some relatives across the border, your goal is to get them over here. okay? And so you're going to be for immigration at all costs in terms of getting them here so that they can work. You know when you come over here that they're going to pay you less, they're going to try to take advantage of you, but you go ahead and you dig in with it until you can do better because you got a goal. You're going to school. You know, I've been down at that border in the morning at 6 o'clock and watched before 5 o'clock in the morning, watch those kids line up to come across the border to go to school over here. And while the rest of us are still sleeping, trying to think of what we're going to do. But they have a goal. And that was the attitude that brought us beyond through the civil rights movement because our people had made education so important that we were trying to get educated at all costs. And now we don't care about that anymore. If we had to redo Brown versus Board today, it wouldn't matter because it's no longer based on color. It's now based on economics. Can you afford to be here?
I think we do care. I don't think that it's over in that way.
Well, some of us care, but it's not. I have found, and I can seem to be hard, but you know, for the past 40 years almost now, 35 to 40 years, I've dealt with us in this community 365 days a year, every year. And I have watched who gets involved in terms of helping. We got a lot of good and a lot of great people. I'm thinking about to the Wilsons, how people got together and fed folks out of their pockets and helped people. We don't want to take anything away from that goodness. But we also have a lot of people who have lived off of the goodness of others with no sense of give back obligation that they should do something just as something was done for them.
But I think it's a symptom of the larger thing that's happening with our American society in general, too. You know, 'cause
Yes.
our society is just broken down. It really has. So I think
Well,
and
society-
it affects us even more.
Society is broken down because when you leave God out, you're going to have a breakdown, okay? And one of the perfect examples of that was you go back to the story of the mutiny on the Bounty, and they left and went to Picard Island. And at first, there was all hell broke loose until somebody found a copy of the Bible in the old ship that they sailed on, and they pulled that Bible out and started implementing, and it ended up structuring a society just because of the word was involved in what was happening. We're not, church attendance is down. Churches are not doing what they should be doing because they're worried about how they're going to pay the next bill as opposed to the word. So we have a tremendous task ahead of us, and Trump is just one of the obstacles.
I just think
And this too shall pass.
Yeah, and to pay attention, to really pay attention, because we're so distracted. We're so distracted. You know, in our society, all they want us to do is spend money, basically. You know, spend money and be entertained.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. You know, if you think about it, all the commercials, everywhere. It's just that's part of what keeps our society running. And they count on us to not be informed. That's what they count on, that we don't know the issues. So we have to make sure that we know the issues and pay attention to this fool. Pay attention to what he's saying and pay attention to what he does and all the people behind him so that we know what to do to counteract all that, either at the local, state, regional, whatever. And that means we're going to have to take the time to do it. And that's hard because we're working hard. We're working ourselves to the bone.
Well, that's where our job comes in as keepers of the
Exactly.
ink,
Well-
as we say. Yes.
I'm gonna say this. I see now that, you know, I'm gonna keep on saying, what the women gonna do? And I figure if I keep on saying that, we're gonna get Miss West back here every time to represent what the women gonna do. Because I like your fire. I tell you, ever since this election, her fire has been on point.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to say thank you all. We are at the end of our show. Dr. Warren, any final words?
Well, we want you to stay informed. We need you to read. We've gone through big changes at the paper to do news bites and put stuff online. And you've got to read. You got to know what's going on. If you read, you'll be informed, and you can make decisions other than a knee-jerk reaction to social media. You got to realize that so much of what you read on social media is not true, and you can't be led by that. And so we got a big event coming up on the 19th, Biscuit Grits and Politics. That's our next event. We're going to be talking about black businesses making money and policy. And you could be an old business, a new business, or somebody thinking about going into business. We're going to show you how you can be successful in that. And so we need to pay attention. We got Black Men and Women United every Tuesday morning. All you have to do is call in and give your email, and you can join us on that call. These are the things that will help us be informed and connect with each other.
Ms. West, any final word?
No, I'm
I'm gonna
speechless.
keep on saying, fire 'em up, fire 'em up, fire 'em up. Voice and Viewpoint Live, they're doing some amazing work. Y'all get your subscription, follow them online, download your app. Let's be a part. Let's come together. The battle is not over.
No.
I'm trying to tell you, it's just starting. The revolution is still here. It is going to be televised. It's going to be written in the newspaper. It's going to be on podcast. And for the bro vote, I want you all to know, we coming for you now. Y'all have a very, very blessed night. Take care.
All right.